Today we are going to discuss a market structure which is known as monopoly. Earlier we have discussed the perfect competition, that was another extreme. The other extreme is monopoly. Whereas perfect competition is characterized by the large number of firms, monopoly on the other hand is characterized by the fact that there is only one firm that is supplying to the market a particular commodity. So for a particular commodity there is the only firm. So there is no difference between firm and industry. As you know, all the firms producing the same goods or with or without the differentiation in brands constitute one industry. So under monopoly, firm and industry are the same. So that means we have to discuss under monopoly as to what kind of average revenue or the demand curve a monopolist will be facing, as we have seen under the perfect competition. Now, market demand curve as usual is always downward sloping. Okay, market demand curve is always sloping downwards. Regardless of the kind of market. Even in perfect competition that we have seen earlier, market demand curve was the downward sloping, whereas for a particular firm it was horizontal, because there are large number of firms that would have to accept the same price that is settled in the market through demand and supply intersection. Okay, so since there is only one firm, so whatever is the market demand curve, that will be the firm's demand curve. That means the demand curve that a monopoly firm will be facing will be a downward sloping market demand curve, where here you are measuring the quantity and here the price. So this is the market demand curve that shows as to what amount of quantity will be demanded of that particular product at various price level. So that will be the firm's average revenue. So demand curve or firm's average revenue curve is same. Okay, because whatever will be their demand there in the market, the same will be the demand for the firm, and that will become the revenue, because whatever will be demanded, whatever will be bought, that will be the sale of the firm. Okay, the marginal revenue curve will be at each level of output, it has to be less than the average revenue, because I have already told you that so long as average revenue is declining, marginal revenue will be less than the average revenue. Now, one implication of the downward sloping demand curve for a monopoly firm is that although it's the only firm, it can charge any price or it can sell any amount of output, but when it comes to price and the quantity, it has to choose only one out of the two. It does not mean that a monopoly firm can supply or can sell any amount of output and charge any price. The very fact that a downward sloping demand curve faced by monopolist is sufficient indication that in order to raise the quantity, that means in order to sell the additional output, it will have to lower the price. Suppose it was P2 and at which suppose Q1 quantity was being demanded, Now it wants to raise the sale from Q1 to Q2, it will have to lower the price as dictated by the slope of the demand curve from P2 to P1. Okay, so this thing is important. Although you can say that firm is price maker, okay, it can choose any price, but it will have to choose the quantity according to that price level. It does not have the control over both the things. So this is the basics about the structure of the monopoly. Now we will discuss as to what are the factors that can possibly create a monopoly. Okay, although monopoly is a extreme form of the market structure where there is only one firm without a close substitute. I mean, there is no other firm which is producing even the close substitute. Okay, now there are possible three factors that can create, though I am not saying that they will always create the monopoly. At least some of the close substitute would still be there, but that situation could be close to monopoly. These three factors are: number one, patents; number two, network externalities; and three is economies of scale. Now I will explain these factors one by one. So first let me take the patents. Patent is granted to a firm that has discovered something or that has innovated something. I mean, something that has novel, something that has commercial value, and something that was non-obvious. That means whatever has been discovered through the efforts of its research and development section of a company that was not obvious before, that would have the commercial value, and that was non-obvious. Okay, so that these are the conditions for which a patent is granted to a firm. Patent means that firm will have the exclusive right for the production of that particular goods for which it has been granted a patent. Okay, by the agency there is mechanism of applying for the patent, and there is a whole procedure through which a patent is granted. Then any other firm, if it wants to produce the same good, it will have to seek the license from the firm in whose name, in whose favor the patent has been granted. This firm can grant the right, or it can allow the other firm under license for which it can charge, or it can give the franchisee for which it will be earning the profit, but it has the exclusive right over the output for a certain period. Now you can very well ask as to what is the logic of creating the monopoly. The logic is, for example, in order to discover some new thing through research and development, a firm has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, and if the good in question is sold at a particular price, say for example at $10 per unit, it will take say 5 years to recover that cost that has been incurred on the research and development that resulted in the outcome of that kind of product which is novel. Now if it is not granted this exclusive right, the other firms who did not spend anything on that can imitate that product and start producing, and the market share would be curtailed, and this firm will be facing the competition. It won't be able to sell the product at, say for example, $10 per unit. It won't be able to recover its cost that it has incurred on the research and development that resulted in this outcome of this kind of product. So If that kind of situation will be there, it will be kind of disincentives for the firm to go in for the research and development, and that will be the huge setback for the development of the new products. Okay, it is for this reason that the patents are granted, although it becomes very difficult to calculate as to for what period the patent is to be granted, but nevertheless there is some mechanism or there are some factors on the basis of which this is decided, and that is one reason that that firm will have the exclusive right. The second is the network externalities. Network externalities is also known as the demand side economies. It means that the value of the product for a consumer increases if others are also consuming it. Okay, that means if the particular good is consumed by the huge number of users or the consumers, the other firm that would like to enter in the production of the same thing would have to create a market for up to at least certain level, which is known as the critical mass. Say for example, you can initiate, for example, if you have the 1 million consumers, so it becomes difficult for the new entrant to create that huge market, so existing firm continues to enjoy that. That is the network externalities. The third possible reason could be the economies of scale, which is associated with the large scale production, because the old firm that has invested hugely in the fixed equipment, in the fixed cost, and it has been producing, and as a result of which its average cost is either declining in the long run or remains constant. But in order to reach that level, a new firm would have to at least produce at that level. So that becomes difficult for the new entrant. So these could be the possible reasons because of which the monopoly could be created. I have explained to you the kind of market that the monopoly is and the kind of demand curve the monopoly firm faces. And from that, it became obvious that a firm can choose one element of the two, that is either quantity or the price. I mean, it can choose the quantity and the price will be determined on the basis of the demand curve which it is facing, and if it goes for the price, it will determine as to what quantity it will be able to sell. But it obviously cannot choose both at the same time. Okay, now I will be explaining to you as to how a firm arrives at the output decision, okay, under monopoly. We have already seen that a monopolist faces a demand curve which is the average revenue curve for the firm. Okay, here the output you are measuring along the x-axis, and the revenue and cost conditions, whether average or margin, on the y-axis. And we have also seen that marginal revenue will be also downward sloping and a bit more steeper because it has to be less than the average revenue at each level of output. And if you recall, when we were discussing the perfect competition, I have explained to you as to why the output level in all kinds of market for the firm will have to be the output level where marginal cost is equal to the marginal revenue. Okay, that means that level of output where producing the last unit costs the firm the same amount as the revenue that this last unit brings. Okay, that means we need to know about the cost conditions of the monopolies. Now, average cost curve of a monopoly is supposed this kind of curve, average cost curve, which is initially declines, then reaching a certain minimum, then it starts rising. That is true for all kinds of, unless you consider the constant cost industry in the long run. That could also be a possibility, but the result remains unaltered, irrespective of the shape of the average cost curve. But we also need the marginal cost curve, because we have to find as to which output level satisfies this condition. So this is marginal cost. Okay, now marginal cost and marginal revenue are intersecting at this point. Okay, so this level, which is Q1, is the equilibrium level of output, that is the level of output which is most profitable for the firm. Okay, now once the equilibrium level of output has been determined, now marginal cost and marginal revenue will not provide any more information. So just forget about these curve, but I will let them remain here. Now then you will see as to associated with this level of output, what will be the price that will be determined by the average revenue, because that is the demand curve for the market. Suppose this is P1, and what is the cost? That is average cost. So average cost is this. Okay, suppose C1. Okay, and the difference between OP1 and OC1 is the profit per unit. Okay, that is, suppose if this value difference between the suppose price is 10, P is 10, and C is suppose 7, and Q1 is suppose 100. This is just a hypothetical statement. That means 10 minus 7 will be the profit per unit. Profit per unit, that will be 10 is equal to 10 minus 7 is equal to 3, and the total profit will be the 3 multiplied by the quantity, which is 100. Okay, this one, it will be equal to 300. So firm will be earning a total profit which is equal to $300. Okay, so this is how the firm reaches the equilibrium level of output, and firm decides about the output. Now to summarize the discussion, I should say that the step 1 is to find the output level where MC is equal to MR. Second step will be to find the average revenue and average cost associated with that level of output. Which level of output? What does that means? I mean, where the MC is equal to MR. And the third stage is to find the difference between average revenue and average cost, that is AR minus AC, for getting per unit profit. And fourth is this profit per unit profit to multiply profit to be profit, sorry, to be multiplied by the quantity. This will give you the total profitability. So these are the 4 steps through which you can find the output level that will ensure the maximum profitability, and this is the area. Suppose if you give it the number, suppose D E, so you can say the C1 E D P1 is the total profit. Total profit. Okay, so this is for the output decision and the profit level of monopoly. Yet another angle or another aspect of the monopoly, and that is the price discrimination under monopoly, or it is also called discriminatory monopoly. Discriminatory monopoly is the phenomenon where a firm under monopoly charges different price for the same or the similar product in 2 markets. That means from 2 different sets of customers, it sells the product at different prices. So under this discriminatory monopoly, we will discuss as to what are the conditions that should be satisfied for the monopolist to be able to discriminate between the 2 set of customers, and what will be its impact. Okay, because the good in quality is the same good is sold to different set of customer at different prices. Suppose I have drawn the diagram already. Suppose there is the good is being sold in 2 different markets. One is for senior citizen, or there is some service or some good for which senior citizens are charged differently than non-senior citizens. Now, how does it become possible? There are basically 3 conditions, existence of which is necessary for the discriminatory monopoly to exist. One such condition is that resale is not possible. Okay, that is, it's not possible for anyone to buy in one market and sell in another. In that way, that profit will be reaped by the customer rather than the monopolist. So obviously that cannot be the intention or cannot be the motive of the or objective of the monopolist. The second is the different sets of consumers, consumer or customers, whatever you call it, consumers. Those who are served by these 2 markets are entirely 2 different sets of the consumers. There is no overlapping, there is no intersection. And third is the market power. Monopolist has the market power where it can sell the product at any price or any quantity it can sell, and the customers do not have the market power. They will be getting whatever is being sold in that. So now consider there is a commodity or service. Say suppose there is a restaurant that sells something at different prices, the same good at different prices. And now senior citizens are charged differently. Obviously, these 2 sets of groups are 2 sets of customers are entirely different. Non-senior citizen cannot become a senior citizen, and it's not possible for them to order something in the restaurant and at the same time move up to the another table and sell it at that. Obviously that is not possible. That could be one example. Airline tickets could be another example. So such type of things are possible. Market power does not belong to the customers, monopolist has all the powers, at least so far as the supply is concerned. Now, these average revenue curve and marginal revenue curve are for the senior citizens, and these average revenue curve and marginal revenue curve are for the non-senior customers. So two sets of customers are there, and I have assumed in this that a firm is having a constant average cost curve. That is our assumption, and that is not a very unrealistic assumption either. It is possible in the, at least in the long run, average. So if average cost is constant, obviously marginal cost and average cost curve will be the same. And then our golden principle of the equilibrium level of output is that where MC is equal to marginal revenue. This holds for the equilibrium of the firm under any kind of market. Now, this is marginal cost, this is marginal revenue, this is marginal revenue. So marginal cost, average cost is the same for the firm because it is the producing that good or the service. Now it is intersecting the senior market at this point and the non-senior point, market at this point. Now that determines the output level. Here it is the 200. It could be any commodity. It could be cup of coffee. It could be it could be the pieces of muffin. It could be anything. Now 200 are being is the equilibrium level of output here for the firm, and it will be sold. That you will determine from the position of the average revenue, and it will be sold at 5, while the same good on the basis of the intersection of the marginal revenue and marginal cost, its equilibrium level of output is 150, but the good will be sold at the per unit price of $7 you can call it. Okay, so this becomes possible because for both the markets, for both the set of people, there is a difference between the average revenue curve themselves. Had there not been the difference in the average revenue curve, there would have been not any inclination, or there would not have been any motive for the monopolist to sell to these different sets of people the same commodity at different prices. So what makes it possible is the shapes of the average revenue or the demand curve by these two different sets of people and the existence of these conditions. So these things are important for discriminatory monopoly, and the total output that the firm will be selling will be 200 and 150. It will be 350 units. It could be cup of coffee or the pieces of muffin or whatever I have mentioned, and they will be sold to the non-senior at $7 per unit and to the senior the $5 per unit. So this is all about or the basics of discriminatory monopoly.